ngayo emphakathini wakhe. Uyisibonelo esihle, usephumelele, futhi uyakhuthaza ukuthi wonke amalunga omphakathi akwazi ukuhlinzekela imindeni yawo. Kepha-ke, bekungeyona impilo kaRichmond yaphambilini. Wayeziphilisa ngokwenza imali yanamuhla kuphela, isonto nesonto, eqala usuku lwakhe olude lingakaphumi ilanga, ehamba ibanga elide ukufinyelela esikhumulweni samatekisi ukuze afike ngesikhathi emsebenzini. Kwakuba usuku olunzima, lukhathaza, kodwa inzuzo incane. Njengabanye abayizinkulungwane, uRichmond naye wayechitha ingxenye yomholo wakhe ekugibeleni nje kuphela. Wayehlala ezibuza ukuthi ngabe ikhona yini indlela engcono yokuhlinzekela umndeni wakhe. uRichmond wayebahlonipha abantu abazisebenzayo ngoba babehlala bebukeka bejabule, futhi ngaleso sikhathi wayazi ukuthi ukuzisebenza kwakuyiyona into ezomuphumelelisa. Kodwa imibuzo emikhulu ayenayo ukuthi hlobo luni lebhizinisi angaliqala elingeke limbize kakhulu futhi elizogcineka lindawo. Yini eyayidingwa umphakathi kakhulu ukuze akwazi ukuhlinzekela umndeni wakhe aphinde akwazi ukubeka imali yekusasa. Isimo, ngoba wonke umuntu uyasidinga isimo, umphakathi ohlala ulambile. Ungahlala usizakala. Sibonga isimo esenziwa ekhaya sakwamama Mini. Ibhizinisi ebhokisini livula iminyango yokuba usomabhizinisi. Uhavini wakamama Mini ubhaka ngaphezu kwesimo, amakhekhe, amaVienna roll kanye namaphisi okungaphezu kwemicabango. Ngenxa yokusebenza kanzima nokuzinikela, uRichmond wayazi angaguqula iphupho lakhe libe yiqiniso. Wasebenza kanzima ukugcina imali ukuze akwazi ukuthenga ibhizinisi lakhe. Usuku uRichmond angeke alukhohlwe. Imicabango esebona indodana yakhe imlekelela bethwale amathuluzi azosiza ukuqala impilo yabo entsha, impilo enenzuzo engenamkhawulo, injabulo nokuzimela kwezezimali. Ukuthenga kukaRichmond ibhizinisi lakwamama Mini kwamenza wabona ukuthi usezoba nomholo wanyanga zonke futhi eziphethe yena. Kwakunezinto ezimbalwa kwakumele azilandele, njengokuxhuma uhavini, abase umlilo nokuxova inhlama ngokufaka amanzi. Azilungiselele ibhizinisi lakhe elisha. Konke wakumisa ngaphandle komnyango wakhe, zingasekho izindleko zokugibela ekuseni lingaphumi ilanga. uRichmond waba namakhasimende amaningi ayehehwa iphunga elimnandi lesinkwa esintofontofo esibhakwe ekhaya sakwamama Mini. Manje ukwenza imali kwasekusezandleni zakhe. Namhlanje uRichmond usebonga ngokuthuthukisa umphakathi wangakubo. Akabenzeli isinkwa noma ukudla kodwa usedale namathuba emisebenzi komakhelwane kanye nomakhelwane bomakhelwane, kanjalo nomakhelwane bomakhelwane bomakhelwane. Uma lapho ukhona ndawonye nemama Mini nawe ungenza okuzona.
Essentially, the video depicts Richmond working in the city, spending 30 Rand a day getting to his job and coming back, working long hours and wasting 2 of those on the road there and 2 hours coming back, kind of thing. But running his own business from home solved all of those problems. But what I'm going to tell you about today, I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about Mama Mimi's, the bakery, but I'm going to talk about a combination of two things. Okay. But first, if we cast our minds back to 1993, and I was inclined to put the picture up, but it's a bit of a disturbing picture. In 1993, Kevin Carter took a photograph, South African photographer. Many of you might remember this. He was in Sudan, and there was a child who had just collapsed from starvation. In the background, shortly after she collapsed, a vulture landed, and basically was waiting for the child, little girl, to die. And we sort of know what happens next. Anyway, if we look at Sudan today, not a lot has changed. Yes, there's war and all the rest of it, but not a lot has changed, and millions of dollars get pumped into countries like this all over the world. Nothing really changes. We look at South Africa. A year after that photograph was taken, we had democracy come in. We all had high hopes for change. We thought there was going to be more job creation. We thought poverty would be a lot less. And today, most of you are in this kind of business. You understand that poverty certainly hasn't got any better. In fact, in some quarters, people think it's got worse. Okay, so clearly, the method that's being used to change people's lives just isn't working. Okay, something needs to be done very, very differently. And it's sort of, we've all brandished this entrepreneurial spirit and People have got to do it for themselves. And internationally, there's this word that gets bandied around, donor apathy. Okay? People are just tired of giving money. It's a bottomless pit, if you allow me to use that word. What do we do differently? Okay? So, Mama Mimi's, we've got a wood-fired oven. It's brilliant. No electricity. We don't really rely on Eskom. Well, we don't. And it's a brilliant little business. Keith has spoken very nicely, thank you Keith, of it. It's a business somebody can run from home with a limited amount of training and support. They need a couple of business skills, they need to understand a bit about money management, but it's the kind of business that can run at home. And a little while ago we developed something called bread credits. Now, Mama Mimi's on its own is a successful business. You'll see more of them countrywide. We're slowly infiltrating the market, slowly educating people that we should be doing things differently at the source. So in other words, you want to bake your bread where it's being consumed. You're cutting out all the middlemen, and sometimes there's 5 or 6 of those, and you're cutting out the logistics cost of getting bread, in the case where I live, from Pinetown to Valley of 1,000 Hills. Okay? So bread is big and bulky. Bread credits does something quite unique. Bread credits is simply like a promissory note. We've got a donor who says, I'd like to buy 10 bread credits. One bread credit costs 10 Rand, and you buy them in batches of 10. So bread credit is a little bit like a promissory note that you're going to buy 10 loaves of bread from a baker, Mama Mimi's baker, in the valley. You buy that bread, so now you're creating a better business for that baker. But once he's baked that bread, so he's worked, he's sweated for the day, he's baked those 10 loaves of bread, he then takes that bread and delivers it to a creche or a preschool at no charge. Alright? So now your 100 Rand for 10 bread credits is creating a job and it's feeding a number of children. Okay? But before I can really blow your mind, are there any banking investor types here? Okay? If I was going to tell you that I could give you a 520% per month return on your community investment, would you be impressed? No. Okay, 520%. Now that sounds a little bit, okay, pyramid scheme, here we go. Okay? But for me to explain that, I need to just stop for a second, and my wife often says I sort of overdo it and I treat people like they're a little bit doff, in her words. Have we heard of something called the multiplier effect in township economies? Okay? So the multiplier effect, some clever people a number of years ago established that cash in the township changes hands a number of times. And they coined this phrase called the multiplier effect. And if you'd forgive me, I'm going to explain this multiplier effect in sort of layman terms. So I have a garden boy that works for me. I'll pay him 100 Rand for his day. Okay? I drive him into Krumm, where he lives, and he gets out of my vehicle, and off he goes with his 100 Rand note in his hand. He walks past somebody that's selling leather sandals, and he realizes his shoes need to be replaced, so he buys the leather sandals for 100 Rand. Now the guy with the leather sandals has got my 100 Rand note, right? And he's busy growing his hair into the new dreadlock fashion, and off he goes to a hairdresser, and he has his hair done. 100 bucks. Now the hairdresser has the 100 bucks. Do you agree? Yeah. The hairdresser's got a smile on her face. Lovely, I've got 100 bucks. Hairdresser heads home at the end of her day, and she walks past somebody that's brying chicken. So there's 2 flat chickens brying on an open braai, and she buys 2 flat chickens for 100 bucks. Now the braai master has got the 100 bucks. Okay? So would you agree 4 people have benefited from my 100 bucks? Yeah. Right. Took my wife a little while to get her head around this, but my 100 Rand benefited 4 people. The braai master has got a really good business going, and eventually he's got a couple of thousand Rand together, and he goes and banks it. Okay? Once he banks it, the multiplier effect stops. Okay, so now I'm not saying let's not bank people. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the township realities is that people still use cash. Cash is still king in the township. So in this little scenario, my gardener contributed to a smile on people's faces times 4. Do you agree? Yeah. That's the multiplier effect. And I really need you to accept this as sort of dinkum. So what happens in townships, if Kwanuswa is sort of a little bit close to formal banking and there's a shopping centre 10 kilometres away, so that a multiplier effect of 4 is probably quite accurate. If we go down to like Lusiki or Flagstaff, some of the more rural areas, the money's going to bounce around a lot more times before it actually leaves. So there you could expect a multiplier effect of about 9. All right? Yeah. Do we accept that?
Yeah.
All right? So money's going to bounce around 9 times. So let's just have a look at what happens when you combine bread credits with Mama Mimi's. Okay? Could I have a volunteer, or all of you could do it? Somebody with a calculator. Use your cell phone. My banking lady, could you? Come on. Okay. Somebody could just follow these mathematics, and later on I'm going to ask you to do some more mathematics with me. And I might make a mistake, so just check me if I'm right or wrong. So we've got a baker, sort of baker like Keith sort of explained, or baker like Richmond in the video. But he's got a guaranteed customer in the form of bread credit. So he knows he has to bake 10 loaves of bread for that customer, and bread credits pay him exactly what the cost of the bread credit was. So bread credit costs 10 Rand a loaf, he gets paid 10 Rand a loaf. So Richmond gets paid 100 Rand for his 10 loaves, and his profit on that is 55 Rand. Okay, so this is an important first digit. 55 Rand. Over and above that, Richmond sells bread to his neighbours, his family, all the rest of it. And I'm really going to give you a poor case scenario of Richmond selling an additional 10 loaves of bread. Okay? Most of our bakers operate in the range of anywhere between 20 and 40 loaves of bread. Keith does 50, but when they're selling to their neighbours, they're selling 20, 30, 40 loaves of bread. Okay? So my baker, let's call him Richmond, has now sold an additional 10, so he's made another 55 Rand. Do you agree? So 55 plus 55 should give you 110. Okay? So now he's got 110. Remember the 10 loaves that he sold to his community? Alright? They were sold at around about 2 Rand cheaper than a competitive loaf of bread. Bread in the township, most of us don't know, sells for anywhere between 10 and 14 Rand. That's the sort of typical price. Mama Mimi is generally sold, depending on which loaf it is, the baker's got 2 choices, a 600 gram or a 700 gram. If they choose the 700 gram loaf, they sell that for about 8 Rand. So it's 2 Rand, 3 Rand, in some cases 5 Rand cheaper than a competitive product. Now, you guys, when you leave, there's some Mama Mimi's bread out there. I invite you to taste it. It's absolutely delicious. It's not like the kind of bread I grew up with. It was homemade, stodgy, stiff, you know. You got to eat it within a day, or you're playing rugby with it tomorrow. Okay? So it's really competitive product. We spent 2 years developing a product that tasted better, but had the same look and feel and qualities of the bread that we're familiar with. So it's easy for our baker to sell that bread, and it's also convenient. So we want a baker on a street corner, and in the scenario I've just painted where he's got to sell 5 loaves of bread, it simply means he needs 5 houses to support him, each little house. So it's really a stone's throw from his front door. Okay, so there's Richmond, sold the 20, and there's 10 loaves that were sold with the 2 Rand saving. Remember that? Okay? My wife's going to say I'm insulting people again. Of course you remember that. All right, so 2 Rand times 10 is 20 Rand. So now we've got a total of 130 Rand. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so Richmond's made profit for Richmond's made 110, but my community has benefited to 20 Rand. Do you understand that? Okay? Each person who went and bought that loaf of bread bought it for 2 Rand cheaper. So theoretically, they've got the 2 Rand left in their pocket. All right, so we've got 130 Rand. Now here comes that multiplier effect. 130 Rand times 4 gives me 520, I think. 520 Rand is the effect. Now this just, every time I do this presentation, it absolutely blows my mind. 520 Rand is the effect of Richmond baking 10 loaves for his neighbours and baking 10 loaves of bread for bread credits. Okay? Let's not forget about the children who benefit from those 10 loaves of bread. And generally 4 children happily share a loaf of bread. Okay, so there's a number of benefits here. But let's look at what happens on a monthly basis. So would you mind taking that figure and times it by 25 days in the month?
13,000.
13,000. Okay, so 13,520 times, is that right?
Yeah. 13,000 a month. No, 520 times 25.
Okay? And let's, sorry, rewind. Told you I was going to make a mistake. So what is it, 520?
520.
520, and there's 300 working days in the year. I can just follow my own mathematics in here. gives us 156,000.
156,000.
Okay, so for the year, the community benefit is 156,000 rand. Okay, now we're all going, oh, this is a multiplier effect, yes, okay, is that really realistic? It is realistic. Richmond's money came in the form of cash. The community savings were in the form of cash. So the money is going to stay within that community. And it makes 156,000 rand difference to that community. Let us take that figure and multiply it by 20 bakers. In a small little village setting where you've got 20 bakers.
3.12 million.
3.1 million. Okay? 3.1 million rand community benefit. And we fed 800 children in the process. Okay? Per day. Alright. So, yeah, we're giving bread, as most of us have done all our lives. We give, and it's a bottomless sort of exercise. It never ends, because when you're giving a product that gets consumed, the next day it needs to be consumed again. Alright? What Mama Mimi's and bread credits are doing now is we're saying that at the same time that you're giving, you're also uplifting the community. Now, I could keep you busy all day and telling you what happens to a community when they have 3.1 million rand benefit. Alright? There's more hairdressers. There's more people selling shoes. Suddenly, somebody can afford a motor car. And then there's somebody that needs to fix the exhaust on that motor car. And so it goes and so it goes. And we'll have other businesses develop that are unrelated to bread. And the whole community then just starts to grow on itself. It's a fantastic, fantastic thing for which bread could be the catalyst. While you've got your calculator, is anybody here from the bread industry? Like, any of the big guys? Assassinate me. Alright? 8.5 million loaves of bread get eaten in South Africa every day. That we know about. Okay, so these are the guys that report their figures. Tiger Brand, Sasco, these guys. 8.5 million loaves of bread are being eaten every day. Remember that there are a lot of areas that bread isn't available. So if it was available everywhere, like Mama Mimi's can bake bread just about anywhere, alright, perhaps that number would be higher. But the estimate is that of that 8.5 million, 5 million are eaten by people who live in rural areas. You sort of follow that line of thinking? Okay? Because I know what it costs to make a loaf of bread, I can gladly tell you that 4 rand is wasted by a loaf of bread that's bought in the township that is baked elsewhere. So 4 rand is unnecessary spend. Okay? So let's do this mathematics. 5 million times 4 rand, 20 million?
20 million.
Okay? 20 million times the same 300 days I spoke about earlier. 60 million. I think it's a billion or something. 6 billion. 6 billion rand. Okay. 6 billion rand is wasted because our township consumer is consuming a product that is baked outside of his township. Now, that's not an accident. It didn't happen like that simply by accident. It makes very, very good business sense. Okay? It makes absolute business sense. And I don't want to get into politics, and I don't want to get into all of those kind of things right now. It's just the current status quo. 6.5 billion rand leaves our communities every year. Right? And we want to understand why these communities are struggling. Certainly makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so we understand the multiplier effect, we understand how Mama Mimi's works with bread credits. Where do we get our bread credits from? Right? We've got an international, a local audience of people who are desperate to do things differently. An audience who wants to stop simply giving, but have an additional effect that creates some sort of entrepreneurial spin-off. Right? That's exactly what Mama Mimi's is doing. And we're doing it very, very simply, utilizing Mama Mimi's bakers to make this happen. And being an entrepreneur myself, there's an added spin-off that I really enjoy about this business. And it sort of hit home for me some time ago in an area called Embo. We had some guests from Metropolitan. You'll see Metropolitan have bought 50 ovens to go into Valley of 1,000 Hills. And we had these guests come from Metropolitan, and we went to go and visit a baker. I wanted to see a real live baker baking bread. And we went to a baker who actually had 2 ovens, and she had a little contract with an old age home that she was providing to. And it was absolute chaos. Her mother works for her, sister works for her, and her brother chops the wood. And there was this young child 5 or 6 years old. He was also chopping wood. Now, at 5 or 6 years old, I probably would have discouraged my children from cutting wood, because that wouldn't have been what got cut. All right? But in the township, 5 or 6 year old, Keith, would you agree?
Yeah.
Capable of cutting wood. And Mom paid him 5 rand a day to chop that wood. All right? He stood there with big eyes, and Metropolitan were there with their cameras. But his brain was saying, entrepreneurial skills are the way to go. He's seen a few hundred loaves of bread going out there every week. She does an amazing banana bread that she actually sells to a restaurant in Pinetown. He's seen all of this happening, and his brain was going, this is the way to do it. All right? When we simply give, we cut out that. Okay? We cut out that connection. So if we go back to the Sudan picture, when they interviewed Kevin Carter afterwards and said, you know, what is the rest of the picture? Where were that little girl's parents? The parents were busy collecting food off of a cargo plane that had just arrived. Okay? So they were there, I suppose you can't blame them, desperate to get some food, and they were hanging around the cargo plane waiting to get that food. It just in my mind sort of encapsulates the problem with just giving. Because it just stops there. The next day, those parents would have been hoping that another plane comes up, and not saying, how do we do things differently? What do we need to do differently? So that's really the Mama Mimi's difference, together with bread credits. Okay? Entrepreneurial spirit, absolutely important if we're wanting to change the problems that we have. Okay? So how do we get involved? Okay? We want to make a change. We want to spend our time and our money as carefully as we can. And I can sit here all day and give you accounts of projects that I'm aware of that haven't worked in the communities. They haven't worked for a number of reasons. Sometimes they make a product that isn't sellable. You know, eggs, very sellable. All right? Government recently spent 40 million rand making fancy, upliftment project making fancy mushrooms. Beautiful mushrooms that you'd buy at Woolworths. But people living in the township don't want to pay 40 rand for a pellet of mushrooms that when they've cooked up, well, no food value. All right? So there are a lot of those kind of things. Mama Mimi is different. It's bread, it's product. The guys bake pizza, snowballs, muffins, Chelsea buns, all the rest of it to make their money. So how do you get involved? Mama Mimi is now, we're still selling one oven here and one oven there. We've got 400 or so ovens out in the marketplace. But we're now selling what we call cells. All right? So what is a cell? A cell is a grouping of 20 ovens together. What we found the failure was for bakers was they needed a mentor. Okay? They needed somebody that could guide them, assist them. So we've now created what we call a cell. So you've got a Mama Mimi cell, you've got a distributor with a Mama Mimi's vehicle, and his job is to call on that baker every day. How are you today? What's happened? He's their social advisor, he's their networker, he's their brother, mother, father, all of those. Sometimes he's their boss, sometimes he's their friend. All right? When you guys leave outside, you'll see there's a young lady called Jackie. She's the distributor for Valley of 1,000 Hills. She's got 12 bakers that fit under her wing, and she runs around most days like a mother hen. Okay? Looking after her bakers, guiding her bakers, motivating her bakers. But with the bread credits, it's also that distributor's job to collect those 10 loaves of bread from his bakers and get them delivered to a preschool. Okay, so the big question from our banker is, what does all of this cost? So a Mama Mimi's oven, with everything that they need, a bakery, gloves, axes, knives, mixing plates, uniform, everything that they need costs 20,000 rand. A lot of money, okay? But it's going to create a job indefinitely. 20 of them together, yes, it's going to cost 400,000 rand to set up a complete cell, costs an additional 200,000 on top of that. Okay? So we're going into areas and we're saying, let's get corporate funders, international investors, to put 600,000 rand into a community. It's going to create 40 jobs right up front, plus my distributor, 41. Let's create the tools that are needed. Getting people to fund the bread credits, we found, is quite easy. All right? People are happy to fund the bread credits. They're already giving money anyway. All right? Now you're giving it slightly differently. You're helping a job that now starts the multiplier effect working, okay? And you're still feeding the children in the process. All right? So that's how we get involved. We spread the word that there's a better way to do stuff for our townships. And whether it's bread or not, doesn't really matter, as long as we can allow the multiplier effect to kick in. So that our giving is through some conduit that allows that to actually happen. Giving a loaf of bread, I mean, somebody said to me the other day, if the bread's going to a preschool, why don't I just go to Spar, buy 10 loaves of bread, drive down into the valley, and give the 10 loaves of bread to the preschool? From the child's point of view, there's no difference. The child's grateful for the bread. The preschool's grateful for the bread. Okay? The difference is that there's no multiplier effect that starts to take place. There's no baker who has worked hard for the day, who's then getting reimbursed. There's no 55 Rand going to him. His business doesn't start to blossom. There's no entrepreneurial skill being passed on to the next generation. There's a whole lot of factors that we lose out on by simply just giving to the end person. And the other factor, and I think Keith, it was at last year's presentation where somebody spoke about a brilliant book when helping hurts. Was that it? The other problem with a lot of the buying the bread from Spar and delivering it is that next week, I'm on holiday in Cape Town. I'm not going to deliver bread to the township. And the following week, got something else on. So very often we find donor aid sort of has this kind of fluctuation. We have suddenly water is very important, so everybody wants to help out with water, and then the next week it's something different. Okay? Doesn't matter what it is. Mama Mimi's, I'd love you to go this route, but it doesn't matter what it is as long as we're using that multiplier effect so that we are uplifting the communities properly. Thank you very much.